Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Downtown Eastside Heart of the City Festival. My name is Terry Hunter, and I'm the Executive Director of Vancouver Moving Theatre and the artistic producer of the Downtown Eastside Heart of the City Festival. I also carry the name Nangulda, which means industrious one in Haida. Myself and my partner Savannah were recently honored to be adopted into the Singlanis clan of the Haida Nation by hereditary chief Bernie Scundle Williams, who is an activist and a resident of the Downtown East Side. And we worked with her on the survivors poll, which was erected here in Vancouver in 2016. So we're very honored to be now adopted into the family. And we are here on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, and we raise our hands in thanks to them for being on their territory. And we're very excited to have you all here today to join this conversation about this amazing production that's in development, Li Keur. And we have with us Neil Weisensel, who is the composer, Dr. Suzanne Steele, who is a poet and Métis, and she's writing the would we call you the librettist for the production?
I call myself the storyteller.
The storyteller. And my old and dear friend Yvonne Chartrand from Vinnipeg here in Vancouver. Welcome, everyone. We're so honored that you're sharing your story about this amazing production that you've been developing with the festival's community here in the Downtown East Side and beyond, and talking about Li Keur and the collaborative process and the implications for the Métis diaspora. And we had you on last year, and this project has been going for a number of years. What an amazing process that you're going through, and we're really looking forward to hopefully having it here in our community as a production in the not too distant future. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to this amazing team of artists, and we're going to begin with Neil Weisensel. Welcome.
Thanks, Terry. So great to be here. We're just going to start with a little piece of music. This is from a workshop we did in Winnipeg in 2018. So Suzanne has created a wonderful story, which was then translated by a team of translators working in Mischief and Anishinaabe-Mowin, also known as Ojibwe. So you will hear these languages being sung. You'll see some surtitles, but unfortunately I ran out of time to surtitle the whole thing. The piece ends with the Métis choir singing music that I wrote that goes with the traditional fiddle tune. So Kimmit, I think we can roll that video.
That's the Vanita.
Actually, Kimmit, I'm looking for the one that I sent you. The wonders of Zoom. There we go. Thank you.
Biscuit
Wow. It's been a few years since I saw that. The chorus sings Nos vies, I can't remember exactly the Mischief, but it's basically our lives, our souls are like the buffalo. We're the free. So yeah, hello everybody. I don't know how many people are here yet today. I'll just speak for a few minutes if that's all right. First of all, I have to say I'm Suzanne Steele, Dr. Suzanne Steele, and the doctor is important to me because I'm the first in my family to achieve that. And so it's very important as a Métis person as well. I'm a Gaudry Fayante from the Red River, actually Saint Vital. Our property was right next door to the Riel property. Then we went into diaspora. We founded Willow Bunch in southern Saskatchewan, southeastern Saskatchewan, our family, and there are still Gaudrys to be found there. But the family lost its social and financial capital from about 1890, and we're only regaining it now. So we're one of the families that went into diaspora, in contrast, say, to Yvonne Chartrand or the Arcon family, who are so lucky that they weren't separated by the winds. So for me, everything I do is a process or is an act of reclamation. I think before we start, though, I really need to thank our translators and who are our elders, and they've been a moral and spiritual guide to us as well. So I would like to name them all. We have Madame Vera de Montigny. She speaks one of the Mischiefs. There are a number of different Mischiefs, and as I said, you'll get two Métis people in a room, and you'll get three Mischiefs or something like that. She speaks one that is sometimes referred to as traditional or heritage or something like that. There's a debate on that. She's been marvelous. We have Jules Chartrand, who is Yvonne's father, and he's from Saint Laurent, and he speaks a more French Mischief it's really interesting. I was just reading about the different Mischiefs, and there's a lot more Algonquian syntax, etc. So it's not a French dialect per se, because it has the syntax. Interestingly, let me just quickly go back to Vera de Montigny. So there's a lot more Cree in her language. And very interestingly, the nouns are French and the actions are Cree. So that's really interesting. And that reflects the mélange. We also have from Saint Laurent, this is one of my favorite stories, Dr. June Bruce, Dr. Lorraine Cotu, and Dr. Agathe Chartrand. And it was my great honor and pleasure this year. I was asked to write a letter endorsing their honorary doctorates. And they were awarded honorary doctorates for their work. They've compiled a Mischief dictionary and funded it by themselves for years. They go into the schools, they teach a lot of the traditional practices. So anyway, and then we also have, earlier on, we had Patsy Miller, Andrea Rose, Suzanne Zicki, Joyce Dumont, and then from our Anishinaabe speakers, Ojibwe, is Donna Beach and Deborah Beach Ducharme. And every step along the way, we have, since I decided I needed to write this in 5 languages. I don't seem to be able to do anything simply. We are so lucky that they have come on board with us and have been true partners to this project. And it's been very interesting because it's an aesthetic translation rather than a direct translation. So they're not translating a legal document or whatever. So the Ducharmes have actually said to me, it's helping them with their language because it's pushing at their language. So anyway, at some point I could speak to that in more detail. Anyway, so that's just who I am. I'm the storyteller. I'm a co-director of the project, and this project is in its 5th year. We got a Canada Council 150 award, Neil and I, to do this. And we thought, oh yeah, okay, sure. Let's write an opera in a year. Well, Neil, you can unmute if you want and join in. But you know, so we did manage a preview of it, a 45-minute preview in Regina in 2019, and it's been canceled 2 times, I think, or 3 times. We have a premiere coming up with the Winnipeg Symphony in February, and then potentially an opera company interested for a fully mounted production. So, you know, yeah. I spent the first year doing my research, and I did a 10,000 kilometer journey through the homeland with a guitarist, a traditional fiddler, my daughter, and a naturalist. And sadly, we can't see the slideshow from that today. So went all through the homeland, Montana, the Dakotas, up northern Manitoba, went up to Saskatchewan, Île-à-la-Crosse, etc. So, and then I spent a lot of time working in archives, etc. The challenge for anyone to write about Riel, especially in opera, is one could write 1,000 operas on any aspect of his life. This person was so complex and so fascinating, and has been so stereotyped, you know, as the madman or the this or the that or whatever, or the victim or the martyr. And I just wasn't interested in that. I'm not a historian per se. I'm trained. I'm an artist, and this is an act of my imagination. So in my research, I went to North Dakota with my daughter, actually, and we found a diary identified by Professor Heather Devine. I think she is or was at the University of Alberta. And she found this diary in 2002. And in it it's from 1870, I think. Can't remember the exact dates right offhand. She thinks she's identified where Riel was in his missing years, south of the Medicine Line. The Medicine Line is the border. So my daughter and I went down into the archives in North Dakota. And, you know, we only had a few hours, so we were like downloading like crazy 700-page diary. And as I'm reading it, oh yeah, that sounds like Riel, like it's about this buffalo guide, hunter guide, you know, but he writes poetry, and he speaks several languages, and he disappears from time to time to do some business over the Medicine Line, and he's wanted for something. And yeah, so when he plays chess, and he's, you know, yeah, so anyway, it sounds like Riel. That's what Heather Devine proposed. Now the historians have been arguing about it ever since, but I'm an artist, and therefore as an artist, I this is good enough for me. I'm going to look at these missing years, and I'm going to concentrate on those, and that's what I'm going to turn into my libretto. Okay, so I'm reading, and we're downloading like crazy. My daughter at one computer and downloading like crazy. All of a sudden, at the center of this diary by an Englishman who was found, by the way, babbling with this diary, and that's another story. He's in this. I look at the center. There's a love triangle. There's a love triangle in the center of this diary, and I went, bingo. There's my opera, and there's a beautiful, beautiful young woman originally from the Red River named Josette, and this Robideau, aka Riel, perhaps. Who knows? That's going to be up to you, the audience, to decide. Josette and he fall in love, and it's beautifully written in the diary. You know, beautiful little images of them swimming, and Robideau putting her on his shoulders, you know, throwing her up into the air and her diving. And, you know, I mean, it's just scenic. It's just right out of a movie, but it's a diary from 1870s or whatever. And nobody had mentioned this very central thing. Well, also the Englishman is clearly in love with her, and he's really, really mad that she has no eyes for him. He's this wealthy Englishman, and instead she's so in love with this Robideau, aka Riel, ? And becomes really jealous. The Robideau leaves Josette and another woman, Marie, with the Englishman from time to time when he has to go do business. So we're you know, I'm imagining he's going across the medicine line and politicking. And Robideau, aka Riel, ? He sleeps outside her tent at night, and we don't know if that's to guard her from the Englishman, or because he's claiming her, or is he waiting for the priest? You know. Anyway, so when I got that, I just went bingo. There's the heart of this opera, because we're talking opera. We're talking an entertainment, not a historical document. There's nothing more dull than a historical document turned into a libretto, you know. So I then read, after I did all this research, I did archival research in French and English. I went home, I went to Banff, and I started to let it cook. And I realized I needed a meta-narrative of a contemporary young woman and her papa, her grandfather, kind of to frame it all. But then I also knew I wanted women at the very heart of this, because I read Professor Sherry Farrell-Rossette's amazing PhD dissertation, Sewing Ourselves. It's not published yet, but it talks about how the women were the economic, social, cultural, and familial backbone of the continent. Not just the Métis people, not just of the continent, you know, and we don't hear of that labor. We hear of the coureur de bois, or like my great-great-grandfather was a translator for Sitting Bull, you know, we hear all about him or whatever, you know. But what about the mamères? What about the grandmothers? You know, we know they're there, we feel them, right? You know, they're in our eyes. Our eyes look like our grandmothers, you know. So I thought I need to have them central as well. So because of that, I've written a women's chorus, and they come in and out of this. And then the story also centers not just on a romance, because our women are too strong to be just stereotyped as attachments. Would you say that's true, Yvonne? You know, we're not just attachments, you know, probably au contraire. You know, jump in, Yvonne. But so because of that, I have a women's chorus, and we have two main female characters. One is Josette, who is in this love triangle, but she's also a person unto herself. She actually is, and again, this is from the diary and then my imagination, an expert expert hunter. And again, our women, Yvonne, you can, jump in at all, but our women are very, very, very good sharpshooters, very good hunters, because they had to be, because the men were away,
Yeah,
So
you could think of, I'm going to interrupt you. You could think
yes,
of Gabriel Dumont's wife, who Madeline, who was her own businesswoman, and she, went by Red River Cart back and forth doing trading and selling and things, all the way from the Batoche to Winnipeg and back. So
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
that's one example.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't stay 100 years in diaspora and survive and begin to thrive as we are now without our grandmothers and our, and being strong, being very strong. My own grandmother was in a residential school called a convent. And a lot of the Métis people have a slightly different experience of like a residential school per se. And I advise you all to read volume 3 of the Truth and Reconciliation report on the Métis experience. But, she managed to survive and thrive. And so I wanted to honor that. So at the heart of this, the heart of the North, based on a quote from Riel's diary, where he sees a crate in a warehouse, and it says, Li Keur du Nord. I can't remember exactly the quote. I'm sorry, I should have it in front of me. He sees this crate and he says, "Give me the heart of the North." He says to God, he says, "I want the heart of the North." So bingo, heart, North, women. So anyway, I could talk probably too much, so I want you guys to jump in.
Well, you know what I thought I'd say? I can't hear you talk enough about this, Suzanne, because even though we've been working on it since 2017, it's always great to hear. It always comes out a little bit differently. It's always really fascinating. So thanks for that. I thought it'd be great to just, so Suzanne and I have been working on this till 2017, but Suzanne always had Yvonne Chartrand, master choreographer and dancer, in her mind. So recently in the last Yvonne has been told for a long time, we're going to do this thing together. So now finally we're at the point where her dancers are going to be coming to Winnipeg in February for the performance here with the Winnipeg Symphony. We're very excited, but we also wanted to bring Yvonne in and showcase a little bit of what Yvonne has done in the past to give you an idea of what kind of things that we're going to see on stage. So do you want to chat a little bit about that, Yvonne, about what we're about to see? Maybe would that be a good thing to do?
Let me just say that Yvonne, I literally wrote her into this very first draft of this, and I kept saying that to you at Métis night.
Yeah. And there were so many. I'm just going to introduce myself first, and just give my hands up to the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh for allowing me to be here and share on their unceded and traditional territories. Really honored to be here today. Thank you, Terry and Savannah, Heart of the City Festival, everybody, all the organizers for inviting me. And first of all, bonjour, tanchi, tansei, anin, hello. I just want to introduce myself, Yvonne Chartrand, and I'm going to say, like Terry, I am also adopted from a Shuswap family, the Seymour family in Kamloops, and just give heartfelt gratitude for being adopted by that family, and also by another Mohawk and from Souk territory, Wendy Nelson. I was adopted into that family as well. And I'd like to just share some photos of my own father and my own family, my own father. This is my father, and Jules Chartrand. And so he's from Saint Laurent, Manitoba, and a 7th generation Métis from there. Here is a photo of him on a horseback. His nickname is Cisco. He was always running around on a horse in Saint Laurent. So a lot of the old guys, he's 87 now, so a lot of the older people still call him Cisco. And this is my grandfather, Amy Chartrand. And he was a trapper and a hunter, and also a barber, a carpenter. And he had farm horses, work horses. He had a race horse. He liked to race horses. And this is my grandmother. She was French, and she was very busy raising 12 children. These are my one auntie and 11 boys. So I have 10 uncles. And so they're my grandfather's parents is Clarice and Jean-Baptiste Chartrand. So he was a hunter and a trapper. And again, she was one of those amazing women that, did sewing and all of the beautiful work to help the men be as strong as they are. And so this is Clarice and her 3 sisters, and you can see their beautiful clothing there. And this is Jean-Baptiste and the wonderful men that they married and helped in many different ways. This is one of the brothers, Napoleon Chartrand, of the brother of Jean-Baptiste. And this is a few more photos of the brothers of Jean-Baptiste. My dad didn't write the name down. And this is Norbert Laurence, who was on the provincial government with Louis Riel, and he did leave the area and he went down to North Dakota because of all of the brutality and the racism that was happening there. And then later on, he went up to Isle La Crosse and was a school teacher, and then he eventually came back. And this is Clarice's parents. So these are my great grandmother and grandfather. She was adopted from the Treaty 7 Blackfoot territory, and he was a hunter and a trapper, and did a lot of that. So I just wanted to share some photos of my ancestors and to share some of the beautiful women and from my past. And back here is Louis Riel. And
can I just say something just quickly?
Sure.
For the people? So I think if you compare the Chartrand family with the Gaudry family, where ours went, you have a really good sense of who you are in place, etc. Like I just, I have my grandmother.
Beautiful.
Wow. And that's all. Until just this year when I reconnected with Gaudrys that are far away. And now all of a sudden I'm getting photographs a little bit like yours. So I just wanted people to realize that the Métis story is complex, and that diaspora is profound for many of us. So we feel lost. Some of us feel lost.
Yeah.
That's all. I just wanted to intercede.
Yeah. And I'm related to Louis Riel from the Lagimodier side, which is the house that your family lived beside the Riel house. That was the Lagimodier house. And so I guess maybe our relatives, I'm just figuring it out now since you said that, and I never heard you say that before. I was thinking our ancestors must have lived side by side at some point. So
well, apparently we're related to Marguerite Riel.
Yeah.
Through the Moran, I think the Morans.
Okay. Yeah. So I've been I started really late in my dance career. I was 24 and I saw the Winnipeg Contemporary Dancers dancing, and also my sister asked me to be in a group called the Gabriel Dumont Dancers, and I also enrolled into fine arts. So Louis Riel has a quote. Nobody really knows where it came from, but it says, "My people will sleep for 100 years, and when they awaken, it will be the artists that give them their spirit back, give the spirit back to the people." So I think that was my awakening as an artist, and I just haven't stopped, creating and learning my culture. Every time I go to a Métis community and share the dance, it's like they share so much with me. Like like I learn so much from the communities, that I've gone to across Canada, because they all hold so much amazing knowledge, and that it's just like a beautiful family all across Canada wherever I go. And so I want to share that. And so my contemporary dance, it was really important for me in the beginning to tell the story the stories of the Métis people. And the very first story I did want to share was about the women. So I created a piece about Marguerite Riel, no, Madeline, sorry. No, yeah, Marguerite Riel. That's right, sorry. um, and so the wife of Louis Riel. And because I read an article about the women that had to hide out in the caves at Batoche, and I thought, you never hear about the women, you always hear about the men. So I needed to honor the women for the role that they played in the resistance, and for, you know, like they still cooked, and they looked after the men, and they looked after the community while a lot of the resistances were going on. And then it was really important for me to tell the stories of the Métis resistances. So, you know, I first went with with Louis Riel and the Manitoba resistance, and brought my father in, and was really inspired by the poetry of Louis Riel. And so that piece was done in 2003, and I collaborated with a woman that was from the Bolshoi Ballet, and trained from there. And then the next year I ended up going, I was able to go to Batoche to do some research, and somebody told me, you need to meet Maria Campbell. And so I met Maria Campbell, and she has been so like incredible and amazing, and shared so much knowledge with me. I was able to mentor with her. I went to do the research at her place at Gabriel's Crossing, and she sent me out every morning at like 4 o'clock in the morning to go outside and be with nature, and, you know, and experience that kinship that we have with nature, the plants, the animals, everything around you. And like, that's what all my relations means. It means like, you're not just your ancestors, but everything, like the plants, the land, everything around you. So that's been an incredible experience. And then I met John Arcan, the master of the Métis fiddle, who went and interviewed elders across the Métis homeland, and they shared with him their knowledge about traditional Métis jigging. And so then I ended up, you know, going and learning, and the elders all told me to get up on the stage, and I didn't want to, because I thought, I'm not here for competing, but, you know, that was the part of the culture that I didn't realize is part of our culture. We're very competitive. And so then I ended up going on the stage, and I ended up winning like a bunch of first places, and I kind of got addicted to it. I got hooked. And so, you know, it's been really fun. And now I judge and do all kinds of things and teach. I have the Louis Riel Métis dancers, and share and just continue to share traditional dance in workshops and things, and contemporary dance. And so the video that you're going to see right now is just an evolution of working with stories, working with more, and then transitioning into more poetic, sort of impressionistic style of choreography that I'm really excited to explore in the work that I'm going to be doing with Suzanne and Neil for Li Keur. So yeah, this is called La Médecine de Mischief. It's Mischief Medicines, and was really inspired from all of the medicine of our people.
Wow. I think people can see why we're excited to have you, Yvonne. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and that was Roland Tangen is from the artistic director from Dancing Earth, and so we really worked with also like the dancers helped like with movement, and then we shaped a lot of things. So I really want to say thank you to all the dancers. We had a lot of collaborators, a video artist, and Wayne LaValle was doing composition, and so we went out to do research out in Saskatchewan with many medicine people, Rose Richardson, Maria Campbell, Joseph Naitauhau, and there was and a few others. So it was a very enriching experience for the collaborating artists, and we got a lot of beautiful, just walking on the land and being on the land, and having that kinship again, experience, having all of the dancers and the artists experience the kinship of the land.
Yeah, I think
So
that's why I had to do that 10,000 kilometers through the land. I had to listen to what the land was going to tell me and the people along the way, and some really important people like Rose Richardson, traditional knowledge keeper of medicine, just saying you're on the right track. And
oh yeah,
one of my characters, in quotes, or in the opera, is a traditional keeper of medicine knowledge, Marie Serpent, named after one of my ancestors, actually.
Can we do a little segue? Would we like to hear her song that she sings?
Is that okay with you, Yvonne, or would you like to
yeah,
speak?
oh yeah,
Okay, so should I set this up?
Yes, so
perfect.
commit. This is Soto Mending a Violence song that's coming up. Suzanne
Yeah.
is just going to set it up.
I'm just going to set it up. So Yvonne, what you said about we're very competitive, it's so true. We're in our family, even we're just so bloody competitive, right? And the other thing I'd like to say too is that a lot of non-Métis people may not realize that the dance, and especially jigging, it's more than just a dance for fun. Can you correct me?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
there's a lot of our dances and our music is medicine to our people and
Yeah.
to ourselves,
Yeah.
and a lot I've heard stories of there was one small child that was going to have a terminal illness, and I was told a story about how the parents put on the music, and that little child just started jigging naturally, just doing this. And I could do this step for you. It's just like step da 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 da, a little horse step, and she just did that naturally, and she never passed away. She lived, and so this is like the power of our medicine. Like we're just so spiritually connected to I believe like our ancestors and our whole our whole culture through this medicine, through this music.
Yeah.
I was going to say music, but it's medicine.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I was really sick this past year, and Yvonne came down and danced and smudged and sang for me and for my spouse as well, because knowing it, and I carried that with me, and so so that was one thing I just wanted to talk about, how important it's more than just shuffling one's feet or whatever. Besides, it looks simple, it's really challenging, and it's exhausting to do. I have a music degree and I have a dance background. Oh yeah, I'll just pick this up. Oh my God. But the other thing I wanted to pick up on your conversation, or when you're speaking, is again on the competitive side. And I love it. And at John O'Connor's Fiddle Fest, there's always competitions and jigging and fiddling and stuff like that. So I wanted to write competition into this opera as well. So there's a boxing match, and at the same time as a boxing match, which was very common, they did horse races, to keep up their skills, so that they could be good at the hunt. And so anyway, so I have a boxing match going on when two Buffalo Brigades meet, and you get to hear the two Buffalo Brigades meet in this piece, and they put their strongest men up against each other, and and they take bets, etc., like that. But at the same time, And I have witnessed this in contemporary times, by the way. The women have a sewing match. And in their sewing match, what they're doing is they're bringing out their most beautiful beadwork, their most beautiful handwork. And so at the same time as the men are, pummeling each other, the women are, well, look at this, what I made for, or look at these vamps for this moccasin that, so that's just very important is to keep one's skills up, but also go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say also the dancers, right? Like there's so much competition between the dancers, and there's the Black Geese characters, right? And also that, like even between the fiddlers and the dancers, there's always a competition going on.
Absolutely.
Who's going to go faster, who's leading, is it the dance? Is it the fiddler that's, leading the dancer? Is it the dancer? So, we're constantly playing with musicians, and it's a lot of fun.
Well,
sometimes they go faster and we can't keep up, and sometimes we're going too fast and they can't keep up.
Well, actually, and again, I've written into this. We have also got an Indigenous composer, Alex Kustrock. He's a former North American grand champion fiddler, and he's been writing with Neil. I said to Neil, I'm working with these translators. It'd be great for you to work with a translator of music as well. So anyway, I've written that Alex is going to actually take on the orchestra as well. Like be in competition with the orchestra.
And he's gonna have a competition with me as well. I know.
That's great.
I'm looking forward to that.
That's great. So anyway, so this piece that you're going to hear is an aria, beautiful aria. And what happens is the two bison brigades meet up, and they have, a big party and everything like that. And they have a boxing match, but the men take it too far. The two men take it too far, and they do serious damage, really bad. So you hear the women say, go fetch Marie Sapant, the healer, we need her. These foolish men. So she comes with all her everything. And as she is literally sewing their skin together, she's singing in Anishinaabe, also known as Ojibwa or Soto, translated by the Beach du Charmes. Thank you. As she's sewing their skin, in English, I wrote, "What strange mending is this of the violence of men?" So that's what I wrote. Thank you. That's what I wrote in English. They, of course, and this is the beautiful thing about this project, the translating, they had to kind of wrap their head around, okay, how could we do it? And so they came up with what would be literally translated in Anishinaabe as, how strange it is to mend a man's skin like I sew a dress. So in this aria, it is, what strange mending is this of the violence of men? And and it talks about taking the medicines from the garden of Manitou, the great creator, etc. Yeah.
Can I just say something there, Suzanne, which was, I went to the garden actually at the University of Manitoba, and I met Elder Margaret Lavallee. The Beach Sisters introduced me to her, and I went to their medicine garden actually. And I told her about this aria that I was writing the music for, and we talked about the words, and she showed me where all the medicines are, the sage and the sweetgrass and the tobacco, and there's one more I'm missing. Sage, sweetgrass, tobacco, and cedar. Thank you. So she showed me that medicine wheel. So once I visited there, this is what I came up with to Suzanne's beautiful words that have been translated. Okay, Kim, and I think we're ready to play this aria.
So, I don't have the translation right here. But I think following up on what we've been talking about, the role of women, and for me, them being central to this work, but also to the economic, kinship, social backbone of the continent. With this character and with what she's doing sewing, at one point she says something like, we women, we sew together, it is we who sew together the world and make the ugly beautiful. So here, so I think that's an important part to our grandmothers. By the way, the Anishinaabe speakers, the Beach du Charme sisters, amazing people, they coached the singers and they sat in the audience and they said, if someone spoke Anishinaabe, they would absolutely understand what you're saying. And so that's a great, great triumph.
Yeah, really beautiful. And I think it's really important for people to know that might not know is that the Métis people could speak many, many languages. Like my grandfather could speak, read, and write 5 different languages, like Mischief French, Cree, English, and then actual French, and then Latin. And Gabriel Dumont and Louis Riel could speak, read, and speak like about 7 or 8 or 9 different languages themselves. And so many of the people were the interconnectors between all of the First Nations and European people, because they were trappers, they were hunters, they were traders, and they were the interconnectors. So yeah, I think that that's a really important thing, is that many of them could speak. And Louis Riel was, when he was standing up for the rights of the Métis people, he was standing up for the rights of the First Nations, as well as the European settlers that were already in Manitoba. And I think that's also really important to just to share.
I think that's really interesting, Yvonne. I feel that in many ways, the Métis people are very well positioned for the Truth and Reconciliation Project, which, by the way, in my opinion, is going to take a lot more longer than 4 years or 40 years, because culturally, as we say in our artistic statement, we honor both sides of the ancestral blanket, and so I think that there is an opportunity for Métis people to participate in the Truth and Reconciliation Project as well, not just focusing on our own stories. So we have been told, Neil, you could repeat this, but we have been told by various elders and people along the way that this project, we are doing it the right way. We follow protocols, etc. We've had a lot of slips. We've had a lot of mistakes, but we've made a lot of, I would say, a lot of positive steps. You might want to speak to that, Neil.
I do. I mean, this project has changed my my life. I remember, Suzanne, when the letter came after the big Canada Council grant that we had applied for, that there was so much competition. It was just, and we were like, we don't have a chance in hell, but let's give it a whirl. And we hadn't heard, and I had a bunch of friends posting on Facebook, oh, we didn't get the Canada, we didn't get the new chapter grant. We didn't get the new chapter grant. And I was like, what's going on with us? Like, why haven't I heard anything? Then I finally get a letter, because Suzanne was the lead. She had got the letter 2 weeks ago. I said, did you get that letter? She goes, oh yeah, I got it 2 weeks ago, but I was too scared to open it. It's like, but it was totally right on, because had we known the voyage that was in for us. But what I learned, one of the many, many things I learned, was just that you can't expect to do reconciliation perfectly. Mistakes are going to be made. That's part of the process. And I've made certainly my share of mistakes, but I also have learned a ton from Suzanne and from the translators that I've learned from Yvonne, from Yvonne's dad, from other people that I've worked with, some of the singers, and also from Alex Kosturuk, who I'm co-composing with, which is wonderful. Composers are usually lone wolves, and it's kind of lonely by yourself. So it's nice, very nice to have a collaborator, especially somebody as talented as Alex. So that's been really great. And the whole project has just been a total gift. But I also want to just give a shout out to Terry and Savannah, who I've known for over 20 years now. And Terry and Savannah were my mentors for this kind of intercultural work, and got me involved in some projects in the downtown Eastside, which kind of helped me come to this with greater understanding. And so I just want to give Terry and Savannah a shout out, and it's always great to work with you and be involved in something. And I had begged Terry to ask a question, and we've been so engaged in conversation that I want to see, Terry, I want to see if you have a question to ask us now, because I do want to involve people. We've been here for an hour now, and I do want to take some questions. So Terry,
Yeah.
you want to get us going, and anybody else, please put some questions in the chat. We would love to answer your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Wow, this is really a fascinating conversation. I'm really intrigued and can relate to so much. And Yvonne and Suzanne, you were talking about this incredible exploration that you were going on, and finding out more about your culture and the stories and the history and the protocols. And that to me is really, really fascinating, that we create these these works of art, and we think we're creating them for the community, but and we are doing that. We're working with the community to do that, but in the process we're also learning so much about our own history and our own culture and our own family stories. And I've certainly experienced that here in the downtown east side with where I live, that we've had the honor to work with here in the community. And I feel like people say to me, oh, Terry, you're really helping out this community. And I say, well, thank you, but it's this community that's really helping out me. I'm being mentored by the downtown east side community. And that's what I hear when Yvonne and Suzanne, you're talking, is that the mentorship that you're going through in terms of delving into this story and delving into this experience is really incredible.
Can I just speak quickly to that?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things, Neil, you might agree or disagree, but I've continually, when I work with, classical music is like so European and hierarchical, etc. And I keep saying it's not about a couple of nights in February in 2022. It's about the whole way. And that's the icing on the cake, because also relationships are going to continue on after that as well. And I think for people, that doesn't mean that I don't believe in deadlines or whatever. We have to have decisions for performance, but the reality is this is about creating relationships with each other and with ourselves and our past and our future as well, our future. And in fact, I've written a future into this as well, into the piece. So
Yeah, and I can speak of Terry 2 years ago when you had Neil come over to the Friendship Center, because we have Métis night. We had, well, before pre-COVID, we had Métis night every Wednesday evening, and so then you asked if we could do something there, and that was like really amazing, because the singer that came was and Neil, it was just absolutely profound. Like, I remember people walking away from there and still talking and just talking about how beautiful it was. And it's like, whenever I hear that music, I feel like I was just thinking about it, like every time I hear the music, I feel like I'm home, like, and it really touches your heart so deeply, like all those languages. And I realize, like, well, like a lot of my ancestors spoke a lot, my great grandmas, spoke those languages.
yes.
And so, so you're connected through the music. As soon as you hear the jigging, it's like that connection. And it was a beautiful event, because then I was able to do a little jig performance, Red River Jig, and then we got the whole community dancing. And so that's what, like, that's the beauty of our culture, is like when we have these events and these little these other side things, it brings the community together. The community learns that what's going on. They get really excited about it, like, like, wow, this beautiful work and something brand new, like this beautiful opera singer. And then, she even jumped in and started jigging, and it turned into a Métis party, Métis kitchen party.
I think
So
you make a good point, and this is one of the raison d'etre behind my libretto as well, being in 5 languages. I really wanted a mainstream audience to open their oral landscape to the languages that have been here and that have been locked out of big stages for 150 years until now. In Regina, we had probably 30% of the audience was Indigenous, hearing our languages, the languages of our grandmothers. That's very powerful and so beautiful.
And Suzanne, I have to say, when I listened to the song that was played at the top, it brought tears to my eyes. I had never heard Métis language sang that way. And so to hear that and hear it in song and hear it centered like that was really moving for me. It was really moving for me.
Yeah, that's the Anishinaabe.
And I'm not Métis. And I experienced that listening to it. So I can well imagine what it's like for Métis people.
Well, that's Anishinaabe, that's Soto.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. But here we go to the big concert halls. We hear Russian, we hear German, we hear Italian, we hear Chinese. But these languages, the lingua franca of this
land.
So it's wonderful.
So I thank you. I wanted Neil, Suzanne, and Yvonne talked so passionately about the work and how, their history and their connection as Métis people to this work and the importance to them. And, I personally feel connected to this because I'm a prairie boy. My spiritual home is the prairies. I sundanced in Manitoba for 8 years. And that's where my spiritual home is. And I'm going to share photos with you guys because I loved what Yvonne did.
I can't see. It's blurry. Why is it blurry?
You got your blur on. You got your blur on.
Well, it's the famous photograph of Métis and his counselors.
Oh yeah, of Riel and
I can't see it because it's blurry. It's blurry.
Yeah, I have to turn off my blur function, but it's my my grandfather, my great uncle, Tom Spence, was one of the counselors to Riel, and he's the one in the photograph that's facing sideways, which I find always really interesting, that all the Métis men are facing the camera and the one non-Métis guy, the English guy, is looking sideways profile towards Riel. So that's my, personal connection through, my ancestors to the Métis people. And I, as a child growing up in the prairies, I I often heard stories. My family grew up in the Métis community in northern Alberta. Well, I shouldn't say it was a Métis community, but there, Métis people were all around, and it was part of the family stories that I heard from my grandparents. And Neil, if you could talk a little about your connection to this material and what brought you. Thank you, Yvonne. That's it there.
Yeah, hold on.
So that's my uncle, my great uncle Tom, on the
right.
Yeah, facing there.
Wow.
He was a counselor. He was a lawyer and a counselor and a publisher in the Winnipeg area at that time. Thank you, Yvonne. So yeah, Neil, I'd like to hear more about, as somebody who's not from the Métis community, like what's bringing this to you, and what's compelling you in all of this?
Well, that's a great question. Like, I too am a storyteller, like Suzanne, but I tell my stories with music. And I knew that the Louis Riel story, there have been more books, plays, and plays and other pieces of art written about Louis Riel than any other figure in Canadian history. And I thought it was a story that needed to be retold in a way, I didn't know how, but I just felt like it needed to be retold. And I saw that this was, I saw that Manitoba's 150th anniversary was coming up in 2020. And that was the original impetus for this. Of course, we got postponed twice because of COVID, but originally wanting to retell that story, but I knew that it wasn't my story to tell, but I wanted to support the story through music. So in order to do that, I too went on a big trip through the Métis homeland, not quite as many kilometers as Suzanne did. I think we did 6,000, but from Winnipeg, we went up to Batoche. I brought my family with me, packed us into a camper. We went up to Batoche, ate a bunch of great food, saw a bunch of great dancing and fiddling, walked around the historic site, drove through Saskatchewan, drove through Alberta, drove through Montana. As a matter of fact, what you see behind me is in Cascade, Montana. It's where Louis Riel lived, where he had probably closest to a normal life. He lived, he met Marguerite, they got married, they had a couple of kids. He was teaching English at this monastery. This is the ruins of the monastery behind me. Very, very almost forgotten. There was one little sign on the road that says St. Peter's Monastery, but there's nothing that says that Louis Riel was ever there, but he certainly was. And I, like Suzanne, went and wanted to listen to the land and to be on the plains. Like, Montana is like Manitoba in a lot of ways, but it's also very different. And so just meeting people and listening to the land and I listened to a lot of fiddling music. I went out and saw a lot of fiddlers. I met fiddlers. I got their CDs. I even have some fiddle lessons from a fiddler that Suzanne introduced me to, Tristan Durocher, who ended up being quite an activist and making a walk from his home in northern Saskatchewan down to Regina to set up a teepee and go on a fast to protest the fact that the suicide prevention laws was not going through. And that law eventually got passed. So I was lucky enough to have a fiddle lesson from him back in 2018. And so I just immersed myself in fiddle music, and the Gabriel Dumont Institute puts out a great book, one of the few books that has fiddle music notated. So they have a bunch of recordings of different fiddlers playing traditional tunes, and every fiddler has their own version of a traditional tune. So it's very interesting to see somebody had actually written it all down, because when I'm writing the music and eventually writing the music that the symphony orchestra is going to play, I have to take what is an oral tradition and notate it. So that was part of my journey. And then more recently, when I started collaborating with Alex, he would write the tunes, send me the audio. We would send him the scene that we were hoping he would write the music for. He would send me a recording, and then then he would send that to his mom, another champion fiddler, Patty Kostrek here in Winnipeg, who would then transcribe it and send that to me. Then I could work with it and constructed vocal lines on top of Alex's fiddle music. And that's some of the new music that we don't have any recordings of because it's all brand new. But the stuff that Alex is coming up with is pretty fantastic. So that's kind of been part of my journey. This is Suzanne and I are coming at this kind of from different ends. This is my 8th opera. This is her first, but it's epically epic for both of us in different ways. And
Well, is it an opera?
Well, yeah, let's have that conversation because we don't know what to call it.
Yeah, because we have actors, we have like a meta narrative, and then we have singing, we have, you know, we don't know what to call it. But why do we need to call it anything? We're Métis, right? You know. I just want to say one thing. One thing I did ask Neil, I asked you is, or I didn't ask, I guess I said to you, I do not want us to be exoticized. The Métis people are not to be exoticized. We may love color. We may love to look beautiful, and beauty and color is really important to us. But we're not to be exoticized like some entertainment, you know, for a typical audience, you know. This is our story. It's about us. We're not exotic. You guys are exotic.
I wanted to ask you, since we, you know, Suzanne, you're talking here, and Neil, you're talking here, and you guys are really the driving force behind this in terms of moving this forward. And you were talking about the collaborative relationship between the two of you and the learnings that you've had. If you could talk a little bit about, because this is where we learn, right? We learn through making mistakes. And so, you know, what are some of the learnings and the gifts that and the teachings that you've had through the mistakes that you had in this collaborative journey between the two of us? There's some element of that you can share with us?
I think we've come a long way in this nation of nations known as Canada, a country I love, by the way, because it is a nation of nations. We've come a long way in the 4 years since we began this, I would say. Would you say, Neil, like institutionally, etc.? Of course, it's not fast enough, you know, but it's what we have come a long way. So our idea of reconciliation and collaboration, cross-cultural collaboration, has changed profoundly, even in the last 4 years. And I would say the main thing I have learned, I carried a lot of the emotional labor, they call it, from the beginning of the project, and, you know, doing a lot of teaching and explaining. And now I don't do that anymore. You know, if someone new comes into the project or whatever, it's up to them to get up to speed. You know, and maybe Yvonne, you could even address that as well. You know, it's not our job to always teach, right? That's exhausting.
And you know what, Suzanne, I felt so honored when you said, and I knew that, and I had heard that from you and other Indigenous friends that I have. And when you said there was some sort of protocol thing that needed to be addressed, and you said, you can take care of that, right, Neil? And I said, yes, I can. I know the proper way that this is supposed to go. So that felt really good. So I feel like I still have a long way to go, but I feel like the learning has been really profound. And I too agree that Canada has come a long way since we started this project, certainly. And there in my neighborhood in St. John's, there was a giant powwow on the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, which I went to, and there was just thousands of people at this local park that I go all the time to walk my dog. And it was just, I felt so good about Canada on that day. And so, yeah, I feel like things have really come a long way. So that's some of the stuff that I have learned. I have learned, again, being able to spend time with the translators, because I was the one at the start who went and actually met with the translators and recorded them speaking their language, and so that we could have some sort of I needed a recording of them speaking, so I knew how to how to set the words. I'm wondering, do we have time to just do a little quick show of the database that we created? Is that kind of a segue that we can,
Or are there any questions from the audience?
well, I do see that
Can I just say one
Fabian
thing?
had a question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a question there.
We do have a question.
Sure, let's go for the question.
It's from Bonaventure. Bonaventure Fabian. Come on in, join in, turn off your microphone and turn on your microphone, I should say.
Hello,
Hi, welcome.
hello there. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm so glad I found you guys today. Of all the city festival, this is the one I decided to come to. I've been busy doing other stuff online today. What I wanted to say was it's not so much a question, it's more comments to this. I'm on a cycle of learning more about my Métis ancestry, and I'm from Treaty 1 territory. My father was Slovenian, but my mother was the Métis roots to Manitoba. There's Parisians, Vermets, Glado, number of folks like that, like us, right? I got so much to say, but I think what I'm thinking about while you guys were all talking, and I got to hear some of that opera, whatever you call it, because I got in a little late, and then hearing the Mischief mixed in, because I'm not familiar with hearing it. Lately, I've been thinking about my grandmother a lot because I really didn't know much about her. I can see her being at home at the kitchen table in the bush in the country, having tea. And I remember her saying that she said, she didn't say she was Métis, we never did. And she said they spoke, she says, oh, the people say we speak a bad French, right?
Hmm.
And my gosh, she's in spirit world. And that French was probably the French Mischief she was speaking, they were speaking.
Yeah, it's not a bad Mischief. It's its own language. It's a dialect.
Yeah,
know?
well,
So it's a language.
it's beautiful. And for my grandmother never got a chance to hear this, right? So she's on my mind a lot lately, and being with this little circle today is really helping me with some of my healing, opening some more of that doorway for me.
Hmm.
I think it's remarkable that you are creating this music because lately, you know, Jeremy Dutcher did a thing with his recording of those cylinder discs, and he's incredible. Like when I heard him in the perform here in Vancouver, I could feel the ancestors through that song he interpreted and sings over and over.
I saw him in
haunts
Winnipeg
me.
too. It was great.
It gives me such, oh, it's so deep for me on another spiritual level. And then lately, I know through the Queer Arts Festival, there is a Japanese mix with white queer person, and they actually they're an opera singer, and I think they sing the high notes. I know nothing about opera, you guys, so I don't even know what to say, what she sings, but she's really high sounding voice. And she did an incredible piece about her fitting into not presenting female and how is she going to interpret the opera. So she has a whole piece she's done, or I should say they have done. And then today I get to stumble into this. I had no idea what this was about because lots of times I don't read details sometimes. And here I'm presenting with this incredible music that I just saw a bit that you showed me. And I'm going, oh my God, again, there's something going on here.
Can I just talk about 4 of our characters? I have 4 black geese of fate. Riel in his diary writes about seeing this flock of geese suspended. So I took those images of the geese, and they are very much, I don't want to use the word shapeshifter or trickster, but they are, you know, are they gender fluid, whatever, they're, you know, it fits in with what you're saying with this, you know, there's ambiguity and fate. And so there are 4 main characters that are also in this that I think you'll find compelling.
Oh my gosh. So I loved hearing this. I had no idea you had the 4 geese. I didn't know much about any of it, just falling and stumbling to this today. And
Fabian, can I ask a question of you?
of course.
Where do you live?
I actually live in the same area you live in, Tooth Musqueam. I'm in by Wall Street by the Peony.
Because that's really interesting to me. Like, are the other folks here, are you from Vancouver, in the Vancouver area? I see Susan and Leslie, Ken, I think you're in the area. Monique, are you all from Vancouver? Can you raise your hand if you're from the Metro Vancouver area? So I see, yeah. So we were talking about this earlier, about the importance of this work in terms of how it reaches out to the diaspora. And I know that, I certainly know a lot of people here in the downtown east side and East Vancouver who are of Métis. And also people that I know, like Richard Tetro, who is an old friend of mine who's just only recently found out that he's Métis. There's that whole thing is going on too, that people are, uncovering this history.
Quite a few Anishinaabe here as well.
So could you guys talk a little bit about that, because we connect back to the homeland, but also the importance of bringing these stories forth. And one of the benefits that we have through the internet, and obviously through touring and traveling and being able to bring shows, is to be able to connect people back to the homeland, connect people back into the roots, into the stories, and that important role that this incredible production is undertaking.
It's going to be streamed. So one can at least listen to the audio. Neil, you might want to.
No, the whole thing, audio, video streamed, everything. Opening night, Friday, February 11th.
And are you guys, Neil, when I talked to you about this, I think last year when you were here in Vancouver, exploring the idea of a smaller show coming to Vancouver. I know this is a big show when you're going to do it in Manitoba. Is there still plans for a smaller touring company that would be coming into places like Vancouver?
Always plans.
Wait, maybe Vancouver Opera should put it on.
We have a big show and we have a small show. We don't have the small shows doesn't exist yet, but it'll be easier to extrapolate the small show once we have the big show all done.
I guess what I'm saying is that still in the thinking, or have you let that idea go? And
no, haven't let it go, but I'm still not finished writing the music for the show that's coming up. So I got to get that done first.
But the Vancouver Opera could do it.
They could.
And one thing is that is really important to me with all my work. Same with the War Requiem, is that I made sure soldiers, veterans had tickets, comps, and so it's really important too that Indigenous peoples get comps as well as these.
Yeah, I was talking to a Métis person who actually worked for an opera up in Alaska, and he was really excited to hear about what's happening. And then we were just talking, it's like maybe the opera will end up in Alaska as well. Like, maybe we could be presented up there. And
there is an opera called Missing that City Opera did that is now being done at Anchorage Opera. So, and actually a good friend of mine teaches at Anchorage University. She's teaches the musical theater and opera up there. So I think it would be, that would be a really wonderful thing.
Yeah, maybe it will be shown across the Métis homeland in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario,
Montana.
We have an invite list of people from various orchestras and opera companies that'll hopefully be coming to see the show in Winnipeg, because I really think it has to be experienced live. With the dancing and with the singing and the fiddling, and there's also a Métis choir. There's a children's choir. It's like, yeah. Did you have another comment there, Terry?
Oh, I just wanted to mention to folks that we've got another 10 minutes. So if you've got some questions, just either post them in the chat box there, or if you'd like to speak directly like Bond did. Raise your hand or put it in the chat box and we'll bring you forward.
Can I just take a moment to show this database that we had?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's pretty interesting. Where is it here? Okay. So when we first started, and Suzanne was like, okay, we need a bunch of Indigenous languages in this piece. I thought, awesome. she found the translators, and then I went to meet with each of the translators and recorded them, each of them speaking each line of the text, and then gave that a letter and a number. But after, we decided, wouldn't it be great to actually be able to have a proper database? So that's what you see here. I'm just going to
Funded
put it
by
in
the
the chat.
Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council grant.
Yeah, so this is SSHRC, Social Sciences Humanities. That's a government program through the university I work at, Canadian Mennonite University. So there's, Suzanne has a wonderful introductory essay that outlines the database. I also have an example here. I think it's this one.
And the
So this is,
the purpose also is for language preservation and exploration, but also for performers to have access to the pronunciation.
so all the singers, the choir, the solo singers, the actors, anybody that has a line spoken or sung in an Indigenous language, they can copy it from the libretto, put it in the search bar, then you'll get, this is what you'll get. So this is our dear Vir de Montigny. This is what they'll get. So you click on this and we get a little opening slide here that tells where it's from. And then we get this.
And this comes
Hopefully you'll
from
be able to hear
the
this.
boxing match when the men injured themselves.
Quick, where is Marie Serpent, the woman of medicines? Kakwaya ho, tande Marie Serpent, la femme de médecine.
So you can stop that video wherever you need to and
Kakwaya ho, tande
listen and look at the search subtitles.
Marie Serpent, la femme de médecine.
So I've been watching our dear translator a lot as I've been composing the music for this show, and this is a total godsend. And that's the link there in
Show Jules.
I was just gonna say, can you
Chartrand.
search Jules Chartrand?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yvonne's
And
dad.
then you can hear it would be good for for the
La
Mischief
femme de
French.
médecine.
I'll do it again.
Mischief French,
So,
maybe you could
so
recognize
translators, here we go.
the language.
There,
There he is.
Jules. So let's see,
handsome as
we've
ever.
got some of these, the early ones are just going to be audio.
Jess, après tout, ma petite, faut se rappeler qu'on est une nation née de l'amour. Après tout, nos
After all,
femmes ils ont tout le temps été trop tête dure pour d'autres choses.
Yeah,
Oh.
our nation is born of love. After all, our women are too strong to not marry for love.
Beautiful.
Here's another one. This is a video.
Okay, here's the deal. You finish a tune stuck inside this fiddle, and I'll tell you a story. Okay, le v'là le deal. Toi, finis le tune stocké en dans du violon, puis moi, m'a te conter une histoire.
Wow.
So you can see how the two languages are so different, the Mischief
Mhm.
French and then the Mischief Cree.
Wow.
I see a question from Leslie. So the Indigenous language included in the opera
Ken, that's my dad.
are French Michif, Heritage Michif, Anishinaabe Mowin, which is also known by the name of Soto or Ojibwe. So those are the three Indigenous languages. So originally it was 30% of Indigenous languages and 70% English and French. Now I believe, Suzanne, we have succeeded in flipping that to 70% Indigenous languages and 30% English and French.
I wanted wanted English and French to be the other languages.
Yeah. And there's lots of controversy. Like I've never heard of Heritage Mischief until just recently. So that's like just another conversation, right? Like as far as what I know and understand and have understood for many years from what my father has taught me is that it was the Mischief French that was spoken first. And then what the Mischief Cree is it's actually not Cree and French. What most people say, it's actually Cree and Mischief French that they're speaking because there's different French words in there, but everybody just kind of says that it's Cree and French. So, you know, there's some things out there that, you know, and heritage Michif is something that just came up recently. I'm not even sure who
That's the
was.
Manitoba Métis Federation came up with that term. Like if you talk to
Yeah.
Verna, she says, I speak Michif.
Yeah.
Period.
And you know
Well,
what, I
that's what
think that,
people did a long time ago. People just said, like, every different dialect, people
Listen.
just said it was Michif, right?
You-
People didn't say I speak Michif French or I speak Michif Cree. They just said I speak Michif.
look,
And
Neil
that,
and
you know,
I have,
and Michif means the people and the language.
Mhm.
Neil and I have sat with Métis people in Saint Boniface, and you know, you hear 3 or 4 languages in you know, two sentences. And I've written the libretto like that, by the way. You rarely will find a sentence in one language. You know, it's like, okay, like my great grandfather, 5 or 6 languages. That's why he was a translator for Sitting Bull. You pull out. And I think that's something that's, you know, and this is another conversation for another time, but with the Métis people, you know, an active erasure was attempted on us because they couldn't box us in, just like we can't box our language in. So what do? You just erase us. But didn't work. We're still here, right, Yvonne?
That's right. And on that note, I just wanted to say too, like speaking of truth and reconciliation, and what's not really talked about too much is that there's a lot of Métis people that also went through residential school, and you know, our communities are still feeling the effects, and even my life personally is feeling the effects of the trauma that Métis people have experienced, and the government hasn't recognized or done anything for the Métis people. So you know, in regards to that, so there's still a lot of work to be done in regards to the Canadian government and residential school and the Michif people.
But also our place as Indigenous peoples as well. That we don't get erased with a larger narrative. We have our own narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, well, I think we're almost up, aren't we?
I have a question here. Savannah posted this a number of minutes ago, and I want to make sure it gets out there. And this is from Savannah, my partner. She's the artistic director of Vancouver Moving Theatre. And the question is, what is important to understand when undertaking an intercultural collaboration?
Oh my God.
A big question at the end of an hour and a half.
Yeah, I want to emphasize when working with a cross-cultural collaboration, it is upon the non-Indigenous person or whatever, the newcomer I don't like words like settler and things like that. It is to be still and to listen and to do your work. And that means you're reading, most of all, to be still and listen. That's what I feel. It's not about enabling us to tell a story. We're collaborating with you upon invitation. And with respect.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing about listening. Like you can listen, you know, like you can hear somebody, but listening is really, you know, when somebody really listens to, you know, listening is really important. And being this like such a, you know, musical and you know, artistic project, the listening of the, you know, listening to the knowledge keepers and hearing those ancestral voices and hearing our stories is really important.
Yeah, we're listening to a lot more than, you know, this creative gray cells. We're hearing it, aren't we, Yvonne? We're seeing it and we're hearing it and we're dreaming it.
Yeah, exactly.
I totally agree with the listening part. I would also say, and to answer the question, I would say to be prepared to change your mind about things and be prepared to be changed and be prepared to be moved by what you're about to experience, because I think that's important. That's to be open-minded and to be able to look at a situation from another viewpoint other than your own. You know, colonialism is all around us. Colonialism to us, or to somebody who's white like me, is like a fish going, "What's water?" It's just, you can't even see it. It's embedded of everything. So you have to make an extra effort as a white person to figure out how that situation has benefited you, and what kind of privilege you hold, and what you can do to just help to dismantle that artificial construction. So for me, this is my small part
Yeah.
doing this work.
Yeah.
So nobody's doing us a favor, Savannah, right? We're inviting people to our world. We're inviting people to open their ears to Anishinaabemowin and the Mischief. They're not doing us a favor. It's an invitation, and I hope it's an invitation that we give with grace, but it's not exotic. We're not exotic. We're here.
Yeah, and even I've heard a lot of elders say that like mistakes are part of the lesson, so it's just a journey of growth and understanding, and just keeping those lines of communication open, and being open to listening and hearing the truth and understanding all of that.
I would echo that. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Better to try and make a mistake than to not try anything at all. So that would be my advice, because I am happy of the work that I've done, and while I'm not happy about the mistakes I made, they were part of the process that I went through, and I learned a lot, as we always usually do, from mistakes we made. I made a very conscious effort to educate myself, and I feel like even though there's a lot more to learn, I feel like I'm quite a different person than I was even a few years ago.
Yeah, it's there's talk, and then there's doing the work.
Yeah, and
It's doing the work that you learn, not through talk.
And making space and being silent is really important.
Yeah.
Really, you have to understand that for 150 years, our people weren't invited onto the main stage in the center of the continent from where we came. Now we are placing ourselves back. We are reclaiming it. We are not being invited. They're not doing us a favor. We are reclaiming our center.
I'm going to end.
I sound like this activist, and I always say I'm not a historian and activist. I'm an artist.
I'm like,
I love that. And this work, certainly for me, as with Neil, it helps me turn myself inside out and see the world with fresh eyes. I love that expression. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for this amazing conversation. Somebody said, one of the gentlemen, Ken, I think, Paquette, somebody said I had to go, and I could listen to this conversation for hours, and we could certainly do that. And we started this conversation last year, and we've got this year, and hopefully maybe we'll be able to carry forward the conversation next year. Thank you so much for everyone that's gathered here. I want to give a shout out to Kimmit, our digital engineer in the back room, who so ably has been running this show for us from behind the scene. Thank you so much, Kimmit. And is there any closing words that anyone wants to say before I say the final goodbye, and wishing you all the best as you paddle down the river?
Yeah, well, I dedicate everything to my grandmothers.
yeah. And I would just like to say a heartfelt gratitude to Suzanne and Neil, and also Terry and Savannah and the Heart of the City Festival, and all the organizers of the Heart of the City Festival, to the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh, for allowing us to be here and share this amazing conversation on their territory. And thank you everybody who listened to us and really heard us. Thank you so much.
To the grandmothers.
Marcy, hi, Miigwech.
Thank
Cook's Jam.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
you. Goodbye.